Hi, and welcome to The Dance Reel. We are here to talk to aspiring and professional dancers about their careers and get the lowdown on what it's really like to be a working dancer. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey, and welcome back to the podcast, or welcome if this is your first time tuning in. Thank you so much again for joining us today. I have a really exciting episode lined up for you today. I was lucky enough to have a chat with Chantal Pinguet. She's from the Kapiti Coast in New Zealand, but she has studied in Australia and also worked in Europe. She's had such an incredible career already, and it was really fascinating talking to her about where she's been, where she's studied, and I can't wait for you to hear all about it. She's been a part of a ballet company in Poland, worked in Greece, and so much more. And what I admire about Chantal is she's such a go-getter. She creates opportunities for herself, which you'll hear more about later in the podcast, and just truly inspiring. So I hope that you enjoy listening to this podcast as much as I enjoyed recording it. And also, just a note that this podcast was recorded last year, so when we're talking about the summer, we're talking about the summer that we're currently in, which is the New Zealand summer 2019, 2019, what am I talking about? 2020 to 2021, just to save any confusion there. And also apologies, technology was not my friend with this one. For some reason, I had a few issues where it wasn't recording on my main device, but luckily I recorded as a backup on my phone, so we did have that. But it's just like the last 5 minutes. So yeah, sorry about that. But it's only like the last 5 minutes, so it's not so bad and you can still hear everything. If you liked this podcast, please feel free to share it on your socials or leave us a comment. I'd love to hear your feedback. It would make my day. And yeah, thanks so much again. Hi Chantal, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be a part of your project.
How have you been lately? I know that you're in New Zealand when you wouldn't normally be.
I've been very cold, but I'm grateful that summer's on the way. It's the first winter I've kind of done in about 3 years, so it was a little bit brutal, but we got through. We got there.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Before we get into everything, do you want to give everyone just like a very brief rundown of who you are, like a very brief description of your dance career and like where you're at now?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in the Kapiti Coast in New Zealand. I danced at quite a few different dance schools before heading overseas to finish my training. I was very focused on classical ballet. So I then danced with a couple of ballet companies over in Europe before sort of changing tack completely and doing some more sort of like commercial dancing in hotels in Greece, which is kind of where I've been for the last 3 years or up until COVID hit. And so this year I've kind of found myself back at home in New Zealand and doing some more teaching and adjudicating competitions and things like that.
Yeah, oh wow, that sounds amazing. Yeah, so why did you start dancing? How did you get into it? And did you always want to be a professional dancer?
I mean, it's hard to say. I started when I was 4 and I haven't known anything different, and as long as I can remember I definitely wanted to be a ballet dancer, and that was my one and only goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started just at a local dance school when I was 4. Mainly just ballet at first, and then slowly, as my parents let me, I added on and did a jazz class, and later on contemporary as well.
Yeah, wow.
So I started, I guess like a lot of young dancers start just sort of doing it for fun, or once a week or twice a week, and then just built up over the years.
Then never leave, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what when I first joined, I think my mum thought I'd be dancing for a term, and then haven't stopped.
Yes, I think there was a kind of that expectation there that it's a hobby, and then it's like, oh no, it's a career path potentially, and very expensive hobby.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. So you did some professional training before you started working. So did you say you started that in New Zealand and then you went to Australia?
So, yeah, so I was really lucky actually in that my high school principal, Tony Kane at Kapiti College, we sort of put a plan together at the end of my year 9 year because I was very keen to be homeschooled so that I could dance more. My
Yeah.
parents weren't having a bar of it. So I put together a plan with Mr. Kane about how I could kind of do a little bit less school and still get through sort of NCA level 3 a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
So that let me graduate and leave college at the end of year 12 when I was 16.
Yeah.
So at that point, I went over to Australia
Mm-hmm.
for just under a year and did some like very classically focused training over there. Before coming back to New Zealand, and then I settled sort of back into my training at Chiltern Dance Centre with Bronwyn Bennett in Lower Hutt, and I did that. I was probably back for about 8 months before I then moved over to Europe. I went and did a couple of summer intensives. So that was like June, July of 2015, and then I started at Rudra Bejart Ballet School in Lausanne, which is kind of it was more like a junior company, but that was definitely sort of like the last step of my training, really.
Yeah. Oh, wow. How did you find that the training compared in the different countries?
That's really interesting, and I think, I mean, there's definitely a difference in syllabus. In New Zealand, I was trained. I did RAD ballet all the way through, and then I had, some Russian teachers in Australia and over in Europe as well who had a different style. And then again, when I was at Rudra Bejart Ballet, they have their own kind of unique style as well, sort of that trains the dancers or prepares the dancers to perform the repertoire of the Bejart Ballet, which is quite neoclassical. So I guess there are little differences in techniques or in placement. But generally, I think classical ballet, it's a classical art form, so there are more similarities than differences, I think.
Yeah, totally. What was your typical day like at
Rudra.
Rudra?
It's a bit of a tongue
Yes.
twister.
Yeah.
Rudra Bejart.
Yes, at Rudra.
So my days there were pretty intense. Yeah. It was we did really long days. So we usually were in at the studio at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we'd have an hour before class to warm up, to stretch, to do Pilates or yoga. That was very much like our responsibility, the cross training. So in that sense it was quite similar to a company in that we weren't told exactly what to do when. It was there was a lot of independence and autonomy and stuff given to us. And we'd have a classical class in the morning. It would start about 9 and would finish around 11.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we would go on and do modern class. So we did Martha Graham technique.
Oh, yeah.
And that would usually be an hour and a half or 2 hours as well. And that's another very intense and quite strict discipline or style of dance, really.
Yeah.
And then to finish off the morning, we would either have a percussion class, we'd do drumming, or we'd have a classical voice class before lunch. And then after lunch, we would kind of have rehearsals from like 3 p.m. all the way through till 7 or 8 at night.
Oh, that is a long day.
So we'd be rehearsing. It's a very long day. We'd be rehearsing for, upcoming performances. We often went on tour around Europe. So again, we'd spend the afternoon either dancing or doing repertoire, working on pas de deux. And sometimes as well we'd have extra workshops, which was really cool. We did theatre, we did acrobatics, classical Indian dance.
Oh, wow, that's super interesting.
What have I missed? But we got to try lots of different things. Oh, I forgot the most important bit. We also did kendo, which is a Japanese martial art. I don't know if you've heard of it before.
No, I haven't.
So it's a martial art, and we did it with, you've got these like wooden swords and full on like protective gear with like basically your face caged in this mask and protectiveness over your ribs and your hands. And it's pretty full on.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And especially at the end of the day, after a day of dancing, you're so tired, and then you've got to go in and fight basically. But it was really good learning experience. So we definitely kept busy, and we did that 6 days a week. So we only had one day off a week. So it was a very full on experience, but it was life changing. I basically just learned a lot about life through dance, really. So I've a lot of people to thank um, over there at Rudra Bejart, because it's actually the only school in the world where all their dancers, all their students are offered full scholarships.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
It's completely free after you get through the audition process. It's completely free for dancers to attend, and I was very lucky as well to have a living scholarship.
Yeah, oh, wow.
That made that possible. So I'm very thankful for all those people and all the teachers over there.
Yeah.
Have really had a big influence on my career, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. And sorry, how old were you at that point?
I headed over there when I was 18.
Okay, yeah, so still quite young, which it'd be quite
So
full on.
pretty young.
Yeah, moving to the other side of the world and having a full schedule like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd had a bit of a taster moving to Australia. It was kind of like a stepping stone.
True, yeah.
But it was very much like everyone who was going to Rudra Bejart. It's an international school, so we had young adults from Colombia, Ecuador, Uruguay, South Korea, Japan, all over Europe. Where else? Canada. So we really had pretty much someone from
All parts of the
every
world.
continent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very mixed class, and we were all in the same boat that we were moving far away from our families. So we kind of just created this family for ourselves, and we looked after each other and lived with each other. And to this day, they are my best friends, and they will always be my family.
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
My home away from home.
Yeah, so after you were there, did you get work straight away, or what happened?
So I was pretty lucky. I got to dance with the Bejart Ballet. So the company and the school, we shared the building.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
So I was very lucky to go and do a season with them in my first year, at the end of my first year. And then partway through my second year, I got offered a contract with a classical company in Poland.
Oh, wow.
And I was pretty gutted not to finish my second year at Rudra, but work is work. So
Yeah.
I took up that opportunity and kind of moved with a couple of days' notice to Poznan in Poland.
Oh, wow. I find that seems to be a very big theme in the dance world is, yeah, you often are moving with little notice. Life can change so quickly.
Yeah, you've got to make those decisions and just go for it straight away. There's not too much time to think about it.
Yeah, exactly. How did you find living in Poland?
I mean, I always tell people I've traveled to quite a few countries, and the biggest culture shock I've ever had has been in Poland.
Yeah.
It's very different from anything I experienced, and I'm sure everyone experiences it differently, but having grown up in New Zealand and then spending nearly 2 years in Switzerland at a school where it's very, very open-minded, very spiritual, and then in Poland it was just something completely different, out in the real world and in the company. So it was definitely a culture shock for me, and at times a bit of a struggle to find where I sort of fitted in, really.
Yeah. Did you find there was a language barrier, or were you mostly speaking English?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was a struggle as well. So in my company, they mostly spoke Russian and Polish, so it was a mix. So the director of the company, who was there kind of half of the season, he spoke a little bit of French as well, so I was able to communicate with him in French.
Oh, okay.
Bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But the dance masters and mistress, they only spoke Russian and Polish. So, I mean, for the first few months there, I couldn't even tell the difference between Russian and Polish, and I didn't know which was which because they were constantly interchanging in class. So it was a struggle, but after a while, you kind of, you understand the numbers, you understand basic directions.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I'd be able to follow instructions now because it's been a while. But yeah, that was definitely part of the challenge. And, in Poland itself as well, the country, a lot of the older generation don't speak English either. So you're relying on young people to try and help you out where you need.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And so how long were you there in total?
Not so long because I came in sort of partway through a season. I was replacing someone who was injured.
Oh, okay.
So I did just under a year, I think, in the end.
Oh, that's amazing. And were you just in Poland the whole time, or did you travel with that company?
No, I was in Poland the whole time for that. I had a long weekend where I made a quick trip back to my friends and family in Switzerland. But no, other than that, we had our home theatre. We were in this big sort of opera house, and we were based there. We did all of our shows there.
Yeah, oh wow. What was the rehearsal schedule like in the show season? Was that also
Um,
quite full on, or did you get some down?
so much more chill. It was way more chill than what I was used to in Switzerland. I was bored.
Oh wow.
I had to pick up hobbies. It was a shock to the system, to be honest.
Yeah.
We had a weird schedule. We'd start at 9 or 10 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go through till 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and then we'd have a big break. And then we'd come back at about 6 p.m. and we'd rehearse till 10 or do a show. So we'd have this big break in the middle of the day, which was kind of like a bit daunting to fill, when you're used to dancing from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, what do I do with all the spare time?
Yeah, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah, so even when we were doing shows, it was just way more relaxed than what I'd been used to in my training, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably nice after you've had such like an intense period
It
of
was
training.
Yeah, it was
Probably.
definitely like somewhat healing, I think. Gave my body a bit of a chance to catch up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know that you've been in Greece the last few years. Did you go there after Poland, or did you come home?
Yeah. So what happened is at the end of my season in Poland, basically the opera house that we were in, it was very old and it was having to close down for a couple of months to be restored. So we were having an extra long summer break. And at that stage I'd only been working, not even a full year. So I didn't quite have the money to come home to New Zealand. And I'm not someone just to sit around and do nothing. So I was like, right, I need to do something this summer. And I'd always wanted to go to Greece. And so I found this company who was looking for dancers, and I was like, right, that would be cool. And so I went over originally on a really short contract, on a 2-month contract, and I don't even think they offer 2 month contracts anymore. And at the end of 2 months, I extended to 3 months, and the end of 3 months, I extended to 4 months, and then I just never went back to Poland.
Oh, we're just stuck here for life.
Yeah, life has a funny way of leading you in a certain direction, really.
Yeah, totally. And so were you just dancing there? Like I know at some resorts you have to do a bit of like entertainment and mingling with the guests, or
So it was a mixed role originally, and I was quite happy to go in and do some entertainment as well. Because I was quite shy. I was very, very shy growing up. And so I wanted that challenge of having to talk to people, to sort of like make some personal progress. So I was doing all sorts. During the day, I was doing fitness instructing. So I was doing Pilates and yoga and stretch classes with the hotel guests and aqua gym.
oh cool, that
But
sounds
I was
fun.
also doing little bits of sports. So I was doing volleyball, water polo, darts, all sorts of things. So I really got to try a little bit of everything. And then, of course, in the evenings, we were dancing. We had shows. So that was, it was just an amazing experience, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. Your shows, did you do like a new show like every week, or did you repeat the same shows?
So in my first season, I mean, it really depends on the hotel, but in my first season, we had 4 shows, which we kind of rotated over 10 days.
Yeah.
So we'd be pretty much doing 2 or 3 shows a week.
Okay, cool.
So we had a bit of a rehearsal period at the start of the season, and then it was a bit of hard work the first month or so, just getting it ready. But once you've learned all the shows, we do them. On rotation. We had 4 shows.
Yeah, oh cool. How many dancers were with you?
Again, it depends on the hotel, but in my first season, if I remember rightly, we were a team of 10.
Uh-huh.
But that was including our DJ and lighting person. And again, we had some people in the team. We had one singer, and some people who were more sort of focused on the sports or childcare entertainment. So we had people who could dance but maybe weren't dancers who were also involved, and then we had professional dancers as well. So it was a mixed team, but all up we were 10, I think.
Yeah, oh nice. I can imagine you guys will be like really close knit, being together all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you're working all day together and then you're living together, and again, it's like it's a second family. And I still keep in touch with them, and that's really cool as well to have made those connections and those
Yeah,
friendships.
that's so nice. And yeah, like I've asked with the other things, what would be a typical day look like? If there is a typical day, like perhaps it changes day to day.
That's right. There's no typical day. It changes every day, which is, I mean, part of why I love it. But I mean, usually we'd start at about 10 o'clock in the morning. And maybe, I mean, often the dancers are responsible for the fitness activity. So maybe at 10:30, I would have a yoga class. So I would go around the hotel pool or the resort pool, and I would invite the guests to come and join me for my yoga class. And usually the classes only last about half an hour because it's really hot, and maybe they've never done fitness before, or so it's quite basic most of the time. So we do, yeah, I don't know, maybe start with yoga, and then after we'd finished that, again, we would go around the pool and invite people for our next activity. And quite often, the next fitness activity in the morning is aqua gym, and it's kind of like the highlight of the day because you've got 100 guests in the pool in front of you. You've got your headset microphone on, you've got the music pumping, and you just do this like half fitness, half fun kind of class in the pool.
Yeah, that
So
sounds so much
it's a
fun.
really epic experience, and definitely I've had some fantastic memories come from that. So that's like the morning session, and then we have our lunchtime. And so sometimes if we had a bit of extra rehearsing, we'd catch up at lunch. Otherwise, we would go to the hotel restaurant. So they've got this big buffet restaurant, and we eat at the restaurant with the guests.
Oh, cool.
So that's cool. Yeah, we're well fed. Um, and depending on how tired we are, maybe we'd have time for a nap, or we'd go to the beach or something in the break. Because we didn't start back till 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So we had a nice long break, which is awesome, especially when it's that hot. You need a bit of a breather. Um, and then again in the afternoon, we'd have a couple of activities. Maybe we'd do aerobics or Zumba, or if we're doing sports, maybe in the afternoon we often have like water polo. Again in the pool, the water activity is always the favourite. And we'd lead a couple of activities, and then have another really long break until about 8 p.m. Or 8:30. We would do a family disco for the kids, so that's a pretty cool part of the day as well. So we'd get dressed up in costumes, and we'd do a bit of face painting for the kids, and then we'd basically just do party dances and games with them for about half an hour, so they have their moment on stage in the spotlight. And then we'd get ready and we'd do our show. And we'd usually be done with the show around 10:30, and we'd just hang around with the guests till about 11. So it's like quite a long day, but we had really good breaks in between, so didn't seem long.
That's good.
Um,
Yeah.
and again, it's like, yeah, one day off a week, which is kind of cool because it means you get to travel around and see whatever island you're working on.
So, which islands have you worked on?
So I did my first season on Rhodes, and then at the start of my second season, I was in Corfu, so that's much further north. It's kind of quite close to mainland Greece. And then I moved to Crete, which is kind of the biggest Greek island, yeah. And then my last season, I was back in Rhodes again, which is it's kind of just become my sort of home base in Greece. I really like working on Rhodes.
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's an experience of a lifetime, and I definitely recommend it to every young person, whether or not you're a dancer. It's another just life-changing experience, and I'm so grateful to have had, really.
If someone was interested in doing that, what advice would you give to them, or where should they look for jobs in Greece?
So the company I work for is called Remark Sunsifan, or Remark Agency. And we actually run castings in New Zealand. We ran our first casting last year. And unfortunately this year the casting, because of COVID-19, we're doing everything online, all our castings. So we're taking video auditions, and they can find out information on that through, we've got a Facebook page called Entertainment Australia and New Zealand by Remark. And so there'll be information coming out. Usually we do our castings in November. So there'll be information coming out soon. And I would just say, just go for it. Like, just apply, find out some more information, speak to the people you know who may have visited that part of the world, and then just take the plunge, take the risk, go over. and have the time of your life, basically.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'll put the Facebook page in the show description so that people can find that.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
That'd
that
be
sounds
great.
amazing. How are you finding casting online? Like, has it been good or just different to what you're used to?
So yeah, so we did some like that last year as well. And it's okay. I mean, it's not the same as seeing someone in person and feeling their energy in person. And I think as well for people applying, it's more challenging to do a video audition as well for the dancers because often you're not quite sure what recruiters are looking for or what's best to show in your video. Um, so there's challenges on both sides, but I think this year is definitely the better alternative. And if it gives people the opportunity from wherever they are to come and join us in Greece, I think it's great, really.
Yeah, totally. I think it's interesting just with casting in the industry in general, like how it will change even when we do get back to some sort of
Yeah.
normality. Like if they decide that, yeah, online casting is actually really convenient, or if, yeah, like you said, there's obviously a lot of positives with being able to see someone in person. So if they will go back to that or have an amalgamation of both, like it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some sort of compromise somewhere. I mean, I remember doing some, castings or auditions in Europe for ballet companies, and they're called cattle calls for a reason. Like there were hundreds of us there in really small studios, and it's like that's not really safe, and it's not actually convenient as well. The dancers don't really feel like they're really getting to show what they can do. So I think there needs to be some way to meet in the middle and do a combination of virtual auditions and live auditions, really.
Yeah, and I think that would be great for us down here in New Zealand when often companies don't travel all the way here to host
No,
auditions. So,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you often have to travel to Australia, or if you are lucky enough to be
At
living
the very least,
overseas.
if not further, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. So I was gonna say, I see that you're also a choreographer. So I wanted to ask, like, what is your choreographic process like and who inspires your choreography?
Right. So that's an interesting one. I mean, I so in my second season in Greece, I went into a role as a choreographer. Um, and then since then, my seasons after that, I was entertainment manager, which involved sort of really producing the whole show. So in terms of that, the what I'm thinking about when I'm choreographing or creating this show is that it's in Greece we're performing to an audience who has not gone out and bought tickets to our show because they're buying into this all-inclusive package in a hotel. Um, they haven't gone out of their way to come and see it. It's just happens to be there. So it's got to be a show that's very enticing in a way, quite flashy and very accessible to all ages and all types of audiences. So we do very commercial shows, and when I'm choreographing, I definitely um, and thinking more about the audience and it being pleasing to the audience than I am necessarily about making it artistic or meaningful. Yeah, so in that sense, I'm very much choreographing for the audience, and even having come back to New Zealand, and I'm now doing more choreography for students, for competitions, for shows. I guess the intention there is more about the learning experience for them. So it's about creating something that will challenge them and teach them and point them in the right direction to something. So if I'm honest, it's not often that I get to choreograph something with the intention of it just being choreographed for pleasure or choreographed for artistic reasons or to convey a message. So I guess, yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say really where that inspiration comes from because I think it's different in every situation.
Yeah, that's so true. Do you find it's almost easier choreographing for that purpose rather than trying to have like a meaning or some sort of like artistic flair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really enjoy choreographing for competition groups because that's when I get to have a bit of fun and get to make it, more artistic as well as, a positive learning experience for those students. But sometimes those guidelines, in a way, definitely make it easier because if the inspiration is not flowing, then there is a pathway for you to follow. Whereas if you don't have those guidelines, or you're wanting it to be more artistic, or convey a meaning, then there's a lot of options, and I find myself spending more time trying to convey a message, and not quite getting it right. So I guess I'm more of a perfectionist if I'm choreographing for artistic reasons than I am for learning outcomes, or just for pure entertainment.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm someone who personally struggles with choreography a lot. So yeah, I guess if you're choreographing for a show, for competition, do you find inspiration from the music? Like, do you normally just look for a soundtrack that you like and then maybe like
Absolutely.
play it and then
Yeah.
just see what comes to you? Or
Yeah, I definitely start by looking for music, and I've got to say that I'm really inspired by the dancers as well. So if I'm teaching a group, I quite like to meet the dancers, or at least see some footage from their like past performances, just to get like gauge the style and the energy of the group as well, because that helps me a lot. And then yeah, after I found a piece of music, then yeah, you just start building slowly, I guess.
oh, that's awesome. So tell me, I see that you've created Stage to Studio. So do you want to tell me about that, like what it is and why you started it?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, that's just one of the positive things that has come out of the year of 2020, because there has to be some positives. And it was basically just started, I saw that there were lots of dancers, New Zealand dancers, who had gone overseas and had been dancing professionally, who had to come back because of COVID. And a lot of them were working other jobs, whether it was retail or hospitality. And I just thought, there's so much talent that is back in New Zealand at the moment. Um, it would be a shame not to use it. And also, I was really hoping to help out some dancers who maybe didn't have a great source of income at that point of time. So I was originally just going to be one workshop up in Palmerston North. Dean McCarris at Dean McCarris School of Dance very kindly offered us his studios and kind of gave me the push to get it all going. So I invited some of the teachers who I knew were back in New Zealand at the time, and we went up and we did a 2-day workshop, which was really cool. We had kids from Wellington all the way through up to Palmerston North coming and joining us. So that was very exciting, and they were kind of all just asking like, when's the next one? So I put my thinking cap on, and we're working towards a summer school, so a whole week, a 5-day intensive in Parramatta at Extreme Dance Studios. So it's kind of was just started as a small project, and it's now turned into something a little bit bigger, but with the same intentions of providing a source of income, or some money coming in for dancers who are back in New Zealand, and also keeping the course fee as cheap and as accessible as possible for the local dancers, so that they can feed off the knowledge and the industry experience that these dancers have brought back to New Zealand with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I find, like, I love overseas, like let's say in America, they have all those big conventions, and I know we have Phoenix here and a few others, but we don't get a lot of that, so I think that's really awesome. And yeah, just them being able to bring the expertise from overseas back into New Zealand, I think it's really special.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and the energy was great last time. So I'm hoping for another positive and exciting event in January.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So with Stage to Studio, I guess now that things are picking up, I know you probably didn't start it with the intention for it to grow, but do you think you'd want to potentially continue doing this like every year when you're back in New Zealand, or do you have a big vision for it now that you've kind of started this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, I'm very passionate about sharing dance, and teaching has always been the end goal for me. So to be able to do that through Stage to Studio and reach lots of different students and young dancers from different dance schools, it's hugely inspiring to me, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. So I think definitely it's something I want to carry on. I would love to be able to do a summer intensive every year to come back to New Zealand between contracts in Greece, and yeah, involve a lot of students. I mean, the ideal would be to be able to bring the intensive to different locations to reach more kids. And so hopefully in the future we'll have the opportunity to build up to that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, and I'm sure everyone's going to love it. It sounds amazing. So I guess with everything that's happened in the world with the pandemic and whatnot, life's kind of on hold at the moment, but how do you see your dance career looking after the pandemic?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And I mean, I definitely think since leaving ballet and making that decision to sort of move away from the classical world, I've kind of just been going with the flow a little bit more, and I haven't really necessarily put in an intention or a really strong direction to my career. And I think that's partly because I spent so long, like probably a good 15 years, just working towards a classical ballet career. So in a way it's nice to just take the opportunities that come up as they come up. But I'm really enjoying my work in Greece. I see myself going back there and giving more New Zealand and Australian dancers the opportunity to come and experience that as well. And as well, continuing teaching, choreographing, and adjudicating in New Zealand, because I feel very loyal to the dancers here, and sort of educating them and bringing them up in a way that's positive, and also in a way that they can make their mark on the dance world and on the dance industry.
Yeah, totally. And that's awesome because, yeah, it'd be nice being so young, having someone like you to look up to and see where they can take their dance career and know from their age that it doesn't just have to be a hobby.
That's it. Yeah, having those positive role models. I know I definitely had older senior dancers that I looked up to when I was younger. So no, I think it's great, really, and I find the young ones just as inspiring and energetic, and I get back all the good energy.
So I guess, like, what advice would you give to young aspiring dancers or even other professional dancers that are early on in their careers or perhaps have found themselves in a bit of a lull?
I mean, in general, I think a really good thing to go by, and it's something I learned a little bit later on, but still earlier than some. It's train smart, not hard. Have an intention with your training, and think about things before you do them. Every exercise, have a think about it before you do it, because there's no need to do everything 10 times. Go in and do it right the first time. And pace yourself a little bit. There's no need to be able to do everything by the time you're 12, 14. So you've got time, I guess, would be the thing I recommend. You've got time. Train smart, not hard. Be patient with yourself, I guess.
Yeah, it's really important to look after yourself. Like you said, you do have time. I know with some of the workshops that I've been a part of, those dancers that have been touring with artists, they're in their 30s even sometimes. So it's like, if you look after yourself, you can make a long career out of this. It doesn't, your dance life isn't over at 22 necessarily.
Absolutely. And I think especially like with ballet companies in Europe, I know from my experience auditioning and seeing my friends, my classmates audition as well. I was very lucky to get a contract at 19. They're not really looking at dancers under 20.
Oh, wow.
So, unless you've come from a school with a huge name, like the Royal Ballet School, it's very, very, very unlikely that you're going to get offered a contract before you're 20. They're just looking, for the companies, it's less sure. It's more of a risk to employ a young dancer. So they're looking for, that extra bit of maturity, and even older if you're looking at contemporary companies.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I feel like...
Yeah, really.
I feel like it's more commonly thought
to do your training, to start full-time training when you're 15, and to graduate within 2-3 years. It's this unnecessary sped through training process,
totally,
which I think is almost detrimental to the artistic development of dancers.
I totally agree. Well, I guess we can wrap things up there. It's been so amazing talking to you. You've had such an interesting journey so far, and I mean, you're still in the middle or even the early stages of your career, so I'm sure there's many more exciting things to come. But I'm so excited for everyone to hear this.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been lovely to have a chat.
And good luck with everything, and I'll keep an eye out for the Remark auditions and the Stage to Studio intensive, and can't wait to see how it all goes.
Cool. Oh, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, and fingers crossed.
I know.
The world stabilises a little bit and we can all get back to doing what we love and being on stage. That would be fabulous.
Yes, I hope so too. So yeah, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.